In this video, I want to convert this query that I made last time into a proper function that can be called and saved and reused in another scenario. The only downside is I need to refer to a table or a list that has my correct answers, and you can't create a parameter which is a list of values. A parameter has to be one single value, which means this list needs to be hard-coded, or you have to manually create the function from scratch, which means you won't have a helper query. I'll be doing this simple solution where I hard code the list, and then you'll have to change that yourself if you want to. But this does have the weakness that you don't have the helper query, which means you can't easily debug the function. I need two parameters, which will contain my input, that is my answer column, and my separator. Everything else can stay the same. I can then create a new query, which will act as my helper query, which is then converted into a function. Otherwise, the steps are the same as the original query, but now they are applied to a single value at a time. I still want to start out by removing any delimiters that might be at the end of my text, saying that if text end of my answer, the last character, if that's equal to my delimiter, then I want to remove it, which I'll do by taking the first characters minus the very last character. And if there's no delimiter at the end, then I simply grab the answer. Just to show that the code works, I can add that delimiter at the end. And now both my answer and delimiter will be something I have to specify in the code when I call the function, making the delimiter variable. Again, I want to find the total answers by counting the number of delimiters and then adding 1. I first want to remove any text that isn't my delimiter, which will now refer to the previous step as I removed the delimiter at the end. And then again, I want to add 1. And I messed up my parentheses. I need a parentheses here in order to end my text select, because the output of text select is a number that I can then add 1 to. I can't change the name of this first step, the source step, but if I go into the advanced editor, I'm able to change the name. In my case, I can just copy this and change the remove delimiter at the end step to be equal to this text. And then I can remove the source step. Again, I use list transform in order to convert my list of correct answers into a list of either ones and zeros based on if I can find the correct answers in my answer. Here's where I have to hard code my list, because again, a parameter can't be a list. Once more, my transformation is to go through each item in the list and turn that substring into ones and zeros. I want to ask if text contains, that is, if I can find my substring, my current item in the list, inside of all of my answers, and I want to replace the current correct answer with a 1, otherwise with a 0. Finally, I just have to sum this list in order to get the count of correct answers. Lastly, the number of points is then the total correct answers minus the total answers minus the total correct answers. Except I copied the wrong code, so I can't refer to the list, but I have to refer to the calculation. Now I can turn this into a function, but first I have to name it by simply right-clicking and saying create function, which will then be func_count. Now I can call the function like normally by selecting the function and then inputting my variables. And this gives the same solution as previously, except I haven't added this extra step where any negative answer is turned into a 0. You can choose whether you want that or not. So